Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm taking a look at something extremely exciting. This is the new Perfect Grade Gundam RX-78-2, but this is no standard Perfect Grade kit. This is Perfect Grade Unleashed. So just in case you're not familiar with this particular kit, you may wonder, well, what makes it Perfect Grade Unleashed as opposed to your standard average PG kit? So to put it simply, it's almost like the Master Grade Extreme Unicorn that we saw earlier in 2020. Basically, it's the same as a Master Grade, just with some new gimmicks and features. That is pretty much the same here. And all I can say is, just to start this video, I will mention that this was my all-time favorite build ever. It was quick, simple, yet at the same time, full of detail and ridiculously intelligent decisions by Bandai. An absolute joy to build, and I highly recommend it. It goes without saying that this is Gundarium tier. However, not everything about this is perfect. There are some things that could have been a little bit better, but those are kind of supplementary things. Mainly, the stickers and the LEDs. They could have been a little bit better. But besides that, this thing blew my mind. I enjoyed every single second of it, and let's get right into it. So first off, we're going to talk about that box. I've said it once before and I'll say it again. When there's a handle on top of your Gunpla box, that means you've got yourself one serious Gundam. So the first thing that struck me as odd about this box is it is a lot smaller than I had anticipated. The last few Perfect Grade Gundams came in huge boxes, but then again this is the RX-78-2, which is a fairly basic mobile suit. On the back it does show 5 phases, even though you never really build phase 1, it's just a bit of an example of the real grade type frame this kit has. That is only in the arms and the legs, by the way. We've got 2 different LEDs in this kit. One is up in the head, that is multicolored, shines through the eyes and the chest, and we also have one for the beam saber. We also have some unique new additions to this kit, including metal parts, etched metal stickers, and some 3-dimensional metallic stickers. The multi-layered structure of this kit means we've got a whole lot of internal detail, the likes I have never seen before. This kit also includes a fully transformable core fighter. So as you can see, this box boasts to be one of the most awesome plastic model kits of all time, so let's get it out of the box. On opening the box, there is a lot of plastic in here. Once again, not quite as much as I would expect with a Perfect Grade kit, but we do have a load of unique extras and a lot of runners with various metallic finishes. I won't deny that straight away I was disappointed by the style of stickers in here. These are like what you would see with a real grade. I was hoping with something this premium you would get water slides, but what can you do? One of the most awesome aspects about this particular build, and I have to give a lot of props to Bandai for doing this, and that is all of the runners in this kit are labeled per body part. Arms, legs, torso, you kind of get where I'm going with that. Each individual part also tells you the runners that you need to build it, so it's a lot easier to organize your runners throughout the build, which makes this one of the most fastest builds with the most payoff I have ever done. It took me 8 hours to build the mecha itself with no cleanup, and it did not need any. I will mention that I will post the full build of this eventually on my build channel, as well as the Master Grade EX, which I still haven't done yet. But basically, to sum it up, it's very simple, there's a lot of big chunky parts that fit perfectly, so this is a kit suitable for builders of all skill levels, all the way from beginner to expert. Like I mentioned already, the build of this kit is phenomenal. You get a fully formed mecha very quickly with this kit. This right here is phase 2 because you don't actually build the phase 1 off the front of the box. That's just an example of the real grade style runners in here. However, phase 1 is the full internal skeleton without any of the truss sections yet. The detail is still phenomenal. So many clear parts, metallic parts, actual metal parts. Honestly, I have to say it's a huge shame to cover all of this up. It looks so good. Once again, I love this multi-phase build. You get a fully formed mecha almost straight away that you can play around with, and it feels like you hit a milestone pretty quickly. What is not to like? Entering into Phase 3, and much like Phase 2, this is just the full internal skeleton, but now we've got all of that extra added metallic detailing, which is all the truss parts, as well as a lot of the parts which will eventually be the opening hatches of this kit. Once again, the internal structure of this kit is off the charts. If you're a lover of full inner frames, you will adore this kit, and you might want two. One for with the armor, one for without. Again, this right here is like an island in the ocean of this build. You've got something to play around with, looks cool. Again, I adore this multi-phase build. Finally, then we've got Phase 4. Essentially, this is the finished Gunpla. So up to this point, it did take me 8 hours to build this. Once again, one snip off the runner with the God Hand, that is it. That's how I prep these kits for reviews. And the reason is because of kits like this. This does not show a nub mark anywhere. You might see a couple of tiny ones down on the feet, but this kit hides them so well. There's only one thing I will mention here, and that is the blue plastic does show a little bit of what I can only describe as kind of folding, where I guess the pigment didn't really mix perfectly. This is only noticeable at extreme close-ups, but besides that, this thing is unbelievably beautiful. Once again, if you want to see the whole build, I will pop it on my other channel eventually, but let's get right into the review proper. So now that we have this absolute mammoth complete, here is absolutely everything that comes in the box once you put it all together. So what we get in here is the standard RX-78-2 loadout of sword, board, and beam rifle, and a couple of extras. The sword, of course, is a pair of beam sabers. We've got an extra one, which contains the LED. The board is that RX-78-2 shield. The beam rifle being the standard Gundam beam rifle, looking a little bit more jazzed up with some cool colors. And the other extras we have in here is a bunch of different fixed pose hands, the fully transformable core fighter, as well as a base adapter, a pair of pilot figures, which is a 1/60th scale Amuro-Ray, and Sailor Mass. Finally, we've got this little bit here, which is just for testing the LEDs, but I threw it up here as well, just in case you're curious. But yeah, we'll come back to all of that a little bit later on in the accessories part of the video. For now, let's check out the aesthetics of the Perfect Grade Unleashed. So finally, here's what the completed Perfect Grade Unleashed Gundam RX-78-2 looks like out of the box, snapped together with stickers and panel lining. As usual, all I use to panel line this is the standard Gundam marker panel lining pens. That is grey on the white, black on most of the other parts, and brown on the yellows. This kit really does bring it all. We've got multiple tones of each color, multiple different textures from metallic to painted to bare plastic, and the general design of this Perfect Grade just gives the RX-78-2 a real powerful, stocky look. And speaking of which, I'm going to scale up some other RX-78-2 models to around the same size as this on the screen right now so you can check them out. Of course, I cannot see this because it will be done in post, but it's just for yourself to see what the different variants and designs of the RX-78 has looked like over the last couple of years, especially this year, and how the Perfect Grade looks in comparison to those particular kits. I will mention that my collection of RX-78-2s is not exhaustive whatsoever. I do not have the old school Perfect Grade, so I do not have that for comparison. I just thought this would be pretty cool and useful for your own reference. So as for the plastics that we have in this particular kit, like I mentioned already, we've got multiple different tones of each color, as well as a lot of different finishes. As far as I can see on here, we've got two different tones of white. That is a pure pristine white and a slightly grayish off-white. As for the blue on this kit, we've got two different tones, what I can only call the standard Gundam blue and a slightly darker variant. The same goes with the yellow. We've got two shades in here, that is pure yellow, and a slightly darker variant yet again, which sets off the brighter color, like you can see, side by side here on the front skirting. Two tones of red, that is a standard red, a slightly darker variant of the same red, like you can see here on the torso, as well as the feet. As for the grays on this kit, these tend to vary from a technical or mechanical perspective because we've got different types of plastic. First off, we do have a real grade style internal frame for the arms and the legs. So far this is holding up good. I'm not sure how this will be over time. We've got your standard inner frame grey that you see on kits all the time, and we've got a slightly darker variant of grey, which is ABS plastic. So ABS plastic is a little bit more rubbery than the standard polystyrene used in these kits, so it's a little bit more grippy. So that means it's in a lot of functional areas that need that little bit more of a tactile plastic. Next up, and throwing a nice little bit of variation to its visual beauty, are the metallic colors. So first off, we've got one particular silver in here, which is actual metallic injection plastic. We've only got the one of these, and that's in a lot of the truss sections of the inner frame. Next up then, we've got a silver coated variant of the silver. This is also on a lot of the truss sections, as well as a lot of the parts that come through onto the surface, which look fantastic, by the way. You can see these popping up a lot on the torso. As well as the silver coated, we've also got some gold coated in here. You can see these on the elbows, the knees, and some of the pistons. Once again, this is a beautiful shade of gold and matches very well to the actual metal Vulcans. So the Vulcans on the Gundam here are metal. And speaking of the other actual fully metal parts on this kit, we've got some in the inner parts of the forearms, which are magnetic, and the verniers round back are also made out of metal and look and feel fantastic. Finally, the last metallic color of plastic we have in here is the chromed out parts. Now this particular kind of plastic I've never been the biggest fan of because the plastic itself is brittle. I think it's so the chrome can stick to it, so it can break quite easily, and the chrome itself tends to obscure detail, but it's used very subtly in this kit, very tastefully, so it works out quite well. We can see this mainly on the elbows and on the fingers. We've got a very dark navy blue in here. This is mainly on the backpack as well as the rear section of the hands. And finally then, we've got some nice clear parts. We've got colorless clear on a lot of the cockpit sections. It's also used for most of the light piping throughout the kit. We've also got red plastic, which you can see inside of the head cameras, as well as inside of the verniers and on the bottoms of the feet. Finally then, we've got yellow plastic, and this of course is in the eyes. The effect of all these different textures and colors is fantastic. But that's not all we have going on here. We also have some stickers, so let's talk about those. So with this kit, we get 4 different types of stickers. That's standard Gunpla style foil stickers, some decals that are more akin to real grade stickers than anything else, these absolutely awesome metallic stickers, and finally we've got stickers which are actual metal etched parts, which look phenomenal. So first up are the standard foil stickers. So the ones that I've used there actually play a functional role in the light piping, just reflecting and blocking the light, that is all. As for the other ones, those would cover up the head, cameras, and the eyes, so I did not use them, but they are an option. Next up in here are the decals, and I have to say, for me, these are a massive disappointment. This is a premium kit and marketed as an extremely premium kit. This really should have come with water slide decals. These kind of stickers here are more like what you would see with a real grade kit. They're okay, not great, and they are the type that have very prominent edges. So I've used the vast majority of these, but you may have noticed up till this point that I did not use too many on the torso. That is because on the blue they show up ridiculously obviously. On the white, not so bad. On the red, they do show up a little bit. They're pretty good on the yellow too, but on the blue, they are very, very obvious, and the same goes with the gray. From a distance, these do look really cool. I'm already getting a little bit of peeling up on the shoulder, and they can be a little bit hard to align. Of course, if you did not know, there is a bit of a hack that you can do where you use a little bit of soapy water to make sure you can line these up, slide them around to get them just right before drying them out. I didn't actually do this, and they're still kind of peeling around the shoulders. Once again, it would have been nicer to see some water slide decals in here, but still, the design of the decals is pretty damn cool. However, I am a little bit confused by the extra attention on the left leg. It's got a bit of a red garter belt. The other one does not. Still wondering what's so special about the left leg. Next up then, here we've got this sheet of red and green metallic plastic stickers. And like the name suggests, these are plastic with the sticky back. So these aren't like your standard foil stickers and have a 3-dimensional look that really catches the light. These look phenomenal. They really do add an extra facet of dimension to an already multifaceted looking kit. These really do catch the light and have an almost gemstone style effect without looking too gaudy. These I adore and hope to see more of in future Gunpla kits. I will mention I did not use number 1 and 2, which are the largest pair of these. These will cover up the head cameras, which will block the LEDs, but honestly I am considering using them because they look so good. So the last set of stickers we have in here are actual etched metal stickers. So no matter how much metallic paint, chrome paint, metallic injection plastic, etc. that Bandai uses, nothing will ever look like actual metal, except, well, actual metal. And that's what these are. We can see these through the vents in the chest, and especially up on the shoulders. These add another awesome design dimension to this kit, and are extremely eye-catching. So if this kit didn't look awesome enough already, we also have what Bandai calls Phase 5. And this is the biggest number of opening hatches in the history of Gunpla, apparently. So what we have is a whole host of opening maintenance hatches as well as the cockpit hatch. Just like it says here in the manual, these can be opened to reveal the internal mechanical structures, such as the truss frame and heat sinks embedded in the legs for heat dissipation and absorption. So basically all of that awesome detail that was on the inner frame that got covered up by the armor is now visible again. This really does give it a full mechanical feeling. This gives it a real robot, functioning mecha kind of vibe, and I adore this. Once again, for me, the biggest aspect about this and the biggest letdown about this is I cannot decide if I want to display it with these closed or with these open. Both look phenomenal. I will mention that nothing here is loose, nothing here is hard to open either. Well, besides down here on the shin, this is a little awkward at first. What you need to do is grab it at its lowest part, pull out, and that will kind of disconnect it and make it loose so you can open and close it. But besides that, everything's simple, everything's solid, and it looks phenomenal. We also have a 1/60th scale amurore inside of the cockpit, as well as this little segment that can move up and down. I'm not going to move that up and down, but it can move up and down and goes right in front of his face like a little display. That is pretty cool. So the last aesthetic aspect about this particular kit is we got two different LED units. One is in the head, which functions to power the eyes and the chest lights, and the other one is inside of the beam saber. So with the last two kits, well, full release kits that aren't based on older kits, which was the Perfect Grade Exia and the Perfect Grade Unicorn Gundam, both of those had big stands, which took a bunch of AA batteries for some over-the-top killer light shows. This kit does not have that. This is a freestanding kit with no base, so what we got in here is some batteries. I will mention though I am a little bit let down by the LEDs in this kit because they are a little bit on the weak side and only look good in very low light, unlike those other two kits that I just mentioned. So the first LED unit we have in here is the Beam Saber. This kit comes including this particular battery, which is a lithium battery which may affect shipping, by the way. I've never seen one of these before, so I had to Google it. Apparently it's a Japanese style battery for using in fishing lures, believe it or not. This slots into the handle of the Beam Saber, closes up like this. We have an actual functioning on-off switch on the Beam Saber, which is so cool. The LED in here is a red LED, which isn't the brightest, but once again does look quite effective. Once again, in low light that is. But I'm a little bit confused as to why they didn't use a super bright white LED and a beam saber that kind of catches the light a little better. The beam that we get in here isn't anything special. This is a perfect grade beam that's been going around since 2020, so it is a 20-year-old beam. So the instructions here do say battery for testing, so maybe it's not the best battery around, maybe you're meant to go out and buy an actual better one, but if that was the case, why bother including one at all? Very, very confusing, this particular beam LED, or the LED in the head for that matter. Odd choices. We also have some LED functionality with the verniers round back. Now this does require the LED beam saber. You need to stick that into the left storage section in the backpack, then turn it on and that light pipes through. It's extremely weak though, and somehow it makes me think that this kit was originally designed with two of these beam sabers included, because both of these sections up here are using those light piping sections. This all light pipes through like it's expecting two sources of light. That may actually make these verniers a little bit more, well, bright than they are, because these are the darkest light up segments on this kit. So next up we've got the LED unit for using with the head and the chest. So I will mention this is not special or new for this kit. As far as I know, it did come out earlier last year for use with an Ultraman kit. I think the light cycles were a little different, but it's pretty much the same thing. This has 4 different modes, and you cycle between them all by pressing this particular button right here, and they're definitely unique looking, to say the least. Attaching this in is incredibly simple. You just pop off the backpack, this back plate, pop off the head, and it just slots in under the head. Simple as this. Then you just do everything in reverse, and your head's back on. So as for the different modes, I will mention first off that the mechanism for turning this on and selecting the modes is a little bit, well, different. You have to jerk out the cockpit section like this really quickly, that's out and in, to turn it on and then to go through each of the modes. If you pull this out for too long, which is anything longer than a quick jerk in and out, it will turn it all off. This is a little bit on the finicky side definitely, and maybe a break risk in the long run. So as for the first mode we have in here, that is one pull. Both the chest lights and the eye lights start up in blue, then turn to yellow and eventually pulsate. As for mode 2, which is 2 pulls, the lights in the eyes turn on in pink, the lights in the chest turn on in pink. Both turn off, and then the eyes pulsate in yellow, the chest pulsates in red. Mode 3, that is 3 pulls. The eyes cycle between pink and yellow, and the chest lights pulsate quickly in red. And finally then, the fourth mode, which, believe it or not, is 4 pulls, or just 1 pull after the third. And what we get is the eyes pulsating in yellow, and the lights in the chest changing from green to blue-green, then blue. So one thing you might have heard me say a lot there is pulsate. There is no mode which is just on, which I would have liked. So that's going to lead into the 2 things I dislike about this particular LED unit. 1, the mechanism is not cool. I would have liked a switch on the backpack, like underneath the backpack somewhere. Simple, effective, not going to break, doesn't involve you masturbating the torso of your Gundam. The second is these lights blow. They're so weak, you can barely see them. You need to be in the darkest darkness in order to see these lights. And even at that, there is no just on. I want the eyes just on, the chest just on. Every mode is pulsate. I really feel like these LEDs are a massive downgrade compared to what we saw with the last 2 fully lit up kits. Sure, they required a base, but hell, this thing doesn't even come with a base. Very odd decision, definitely. So now moving into the second part of the review, which is those accessories. And once again, we're rewinding back to the beginning just to take a look at everything that comes in here. We saw all of this, the overview already, so let's get into everything one by one. So first up, as for the hands in here, these are very unique. These are multi-layered grey, dark navy, and silver. I will mention though that there are some prominent seams in the sides of the hands which some people may not particularly like. And speaking of some aspects that some people may not like, these hands right here are fixed pose. Remember those superposable, perfect grade style hands? Well, they do not exist in this kit. Everything is a pre-posed hand. So what we've got is widespread open, clenched fists, beam saber holding hands, beam rifle holding hands, and of course we've got a pair of each of those. As for the beam sabers, we've already saw the powered LED type, but we also have a pair of standard variants as well. This is the standard one up front, so that is separated into white and light grey, and the one in the back, that is the powered type, and this is all in the one color. They look pretty similar. The beams that we've gotten here, these are 20 years old. Basically, kits have been rocking these since 2020, nothing special. The holding hands, for a lack of a better way of saying it, are high-grade style hands, aka the sandwich style hands. That is, you attach the beam saber into the fingers like it's one piece of bread, and then onto the rest of the hand, which is the other bit of bread, and the beam saber itself is the ham. There's a quick example of what one will look like attached into the hand. When these are not in use, as usual, you just pop out the blade, and both of those can be stored up on the backpack. There are 3 in here, so you can only store 2 up there. The other one, you're gonna have to keep somewhere else. So next up in here then, we've got that beam rifle, and Bandai definitely gave this an upgrade. We've got a lot going on here. This is in the same color as the backpack. We've also got some light gray. That multifaceted look is also here too, because we've got metallic gold, chrome silver behind a clear yellow part, and some of those green metallic plastic stickers. Honestly, this looks so good. Attaching this is exactly the same as the beam saber, sandwich style hand, ball joint attachment, but I will mention that I've noticed that this ball joint is a little bit on the loose side, so mine is definitely gonna need some tightening up. I'll also mention that the front handle on this is attached in a very unique way. We've got a ball joint here, so this can move around quite a bit. So this does make lining it up in 2 hands a lot easier than something we would have seen before. This is definitely a cool little feature. This side section up front also has side-to-side movement as well as full rotation of the side itself, giving you a lot of posing options. When the beam rifle is not in use, we've got a flip out little golden peg right here in the side, a rotating cylinder in the Gundam's butt, and then you just stick that peg into the butthole, and this is what it looks like stored away. So next up then we have the shield. This is in the same white, red, and yellow as the mobile suit itself. Around back we've got a whole lot going on. That internal structure looks fantastic. As for the moving parts, up top we've got this little window section which you can see through like so. This can close up with a sliding piece for extra protection. That just happens with this little slidey bit. As for the part which attaches to the arm, that can slide down and up ever so slightly. We've got a moving handle down bottom, and this arm section right here has a ton of articulation. So, ball joint here. We then have a whole bunch of hinges just above that, which moves it from here all the way over to there and everything in between. Another point of rotation right here. And the coolest aspect about this is the fact that the attachment point is a big old magnet. So to attach this, you just slide up this segment on the forearm. We've got a little metal section inside for attachment. That whole shield just attaches on as easy as that. Once you get that shield attached, it is extremely easy to line up the bottom handle so it attaches into the hand. I just went with the widespread open hand here, just to save a bit of time. But this holds on very well. That's a good magnet. So that will not be falling off on you anytime soon. And the arms are strong enough to hold it up most of the time. So yeah, that's definitely one impressive shield. So next up here we've got a fully color accurate and absolutely awesome core fighter. So once again, this is in all the same colors as the mobile suit itself. I will mention though I have not panellined this or applied the decals, but it still looks fantastic. We've got some opening hatches round back which feature some missiles, an opening cockpit that doesn't seem to like to stay open. Around at the bottom then we've got some closing landing gears up front as well as round back. And also in this kit we get an action base adapter for using this with any action base with a 3mm peg for displaying it in flying poses. If you want to use this inside of the Gundam as the core block, then you just fold the whole thing up like so, kick the pilot into the forward facing position, and just pop it in where the core block was. There's a quick side-by-side comparison of this folded up side by side with the core block. Lastly then in here we've got the 1/60th scale figure of both Amuro Ray and Sailor Mars. Usually I don't say too much about the pilot figures, but these are the nicest looking pair of pilot figures I have ever seen. The attention to detail here, the poses, everything about them, they just look so good. So now moving on to the last part of the review, and that of course is the articulation. And as usual, we're going to be working from the head down. As for the comment on how solid this kit is, I am blown away. Yeah, that's meant to come off. Yeah, that bit's meant to come off. I was messing with the arms there, so I probably loosened it up, so ignore that. But yeah, besides that, this thing is solid as a rock. Let's check out that articulation. As for the head, there it is looking forward, looking all the way up, looking all the way down, side to side. And honestly, I cannot get over how awesome the pistons look in the neck. That is so cool. And of course, the obligatory giggity 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 goo is present. The shoulders on this kit are fantastic. There's them all the way in. They pull out just like so to give you a nice swing to the front. And what makes this even cooler is the fact that the armor round back comes too, so it still looks natural even when it's moved out. It can also swing to the back right here. We've got this flap that opens up like so that arm can move from there to there, and finally up to there. However, the instructions does show it pointing the entire way up, but that is as high as I can get it, which is still impressive. We've got full rotation at that upper arm. The armor at the cuff can flex from there down to there, so it moves with the hand. The wrist is a ball joint, which gives us that full 360-degree spin like that. And we also have a joint inside of the wrist, which allows it to flex forward like so. At the waist, we don't have much but side-to-side rotation. Besides that, all we've got is what seems like it's just an unlocking mechanism to open up the cockpit. But besides that, there's nothing really else going on here. To make up for that, we've got a bit of a mechanism inside the waist, which involves pulling down the butt and the crotch at the same time, just like the instruction says right here. I'm not sure how obvious this will be, but this right here is it all the way down, and there it is, all the way back up to the original point. As for the front skirting armor, it can move from here, flip up like so on a hinge, and it can also rotate outwards to that point in a standard rotatey kind of way. The side skirting armor is the same, exact same hinge up, and that same back to front rotation like this. The butt skirt is exactly the same as the front skirt, and here's an example of its full range of motion up, down, rotate, and back to start. Just like with the rest of the kit, Bandai has gone for the reassuring strength of basic joints. So the waist here is just a standard joint. So with the waist section drop down, there's the kick all the way up to the front, which is okay. All the way out to the back, which is a little better. And can this thing pull off the splits? It most certainly can. As for the bend at the knee, this is double jointed. There is the full bend of the first joint. That would be the full bend of the second joint, the one further down. And there is a combination of the two. So this is a nice fluid motion that moves the knee armor as it moves. We also have a nice little separating section down here, which looks pretty rad. As for the ankle armor next, there it is all the way up, there it is all the way down. Simple, but effective. And finally now testing that ankle out on the ground. So first off, we're going to bend that all the way forward. That is what we get without lifting the heel off the ground. When we get that toe involved, we get a little bit more, actually a lot a bit more. So still toe on the ground. Next up then, there it is all the way out to the back. We actually need to pull out this little segment here for this to work out. And there we go. That is not too bad at all. And finally then, the side to side pivot is actually quite weak and a little bit of a disappointment. Not the worst though. Also, the toe cannot bend down the way, just up. So when it comes to the articulation on this, it is very good, not great. But at the same time, you've got to consider two things. One, perfect grades never really have over-the-top articulation anyway, so this is good by perfect grade standards. Actually, it's great. But on top of that, I didn't even mention all the opening hatches and gimmicks on this kit in this section. So with that combined, on top of the articulation we have here, this thing can do a lot. However, it will have a lot of trouble pulling off most basic poses. It has a couple of poses it looks fantastic in, no doubt. But probably my biggest peeve about this is the fact that there is no action base or compatible action base for using this with. And once again, this is rock solid, and the only thing that fell off at all on me during this review was the shoulders. And that is because I was fiddling the arms around a lot. Absolutely epic. But anyway, that right there is it for the review, and without a single doubt, this kit is Gundarium tier. Sure, it is a lot different to a lot of perfect grades that came before it in good ways and in some mildly disappointing ways, but this is not the same grade as those particular model kits. This is perfect grade unleashed. This was the most fun I have ever had building a model kit, full stop. The reason for this is it's a simple kit, really. It's a simple kit done really well and intelligently. You build it up in layers, which is a lot of fun. It means you've got a full mecha pretty much right off the bat with phase 1. Or should I say phase 2, because you technically don't build phase 1, but anyway. In total, this thing took me only 8 hours to build. That isn't including the weapons, the decals, the panel lining, etc. So if you're building this at a normal pace, this would be a nice weekend project. If you're going to put a whole lot of time into it, then maybe a little bit longer than that, but you don't need to. This thing requires zero cleanup. I repeat, zero cleanup. Honestly, I cannot recommend this enough. It does have a couple of not so great aspects. Number one, of course, being the LEDs. I say wire up your own set of high power LEDs because the ones in here are just weak. The decals aren't great, but they're definitely passable, so on the whole, once again, Gundarium tier, the most fun I've ever had building a model kit, and without a single doubt, my favorite perfect grade to date. A bunch of lights on a base does not make up for something looking this cool, being this layered, because this right here is Gunpla Unleashed. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more Gunpla reviews, and I will see you next time.